show This Week in WordPress and Tech. We do this every Friday around 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. I've got a great panel, got a new friend joining us, and I've got an old friend of the show. I'm going to, ladies first, Nashier Green. Would you like to introduce yourself to the tribe?
Yeah. I'm Naisha Green. I am the editorial director of Master WP, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm such a big fan of yours, Jonathan. I don't know if you saw my tweets, but you're in my top 5 now.
I love it. You can come back again. That's the only time. The rest of the panel got nothing nice to say about me, apart from John. John, my friends, you know. I've got Sally, a friend as well sometimes until I peeve her off. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself?
I am Sally, the WP fangirl, and my cat is here. And I'm looking forward to having both Naisha and Brian on the show today.
Yes, got old friend of the show, Brian Jackson. Brian, would you like to introduce yourself to the tribe?
Yeah, I'm Brian Jackson, co-founder at Forge Media, and along with my brother, we develop a couple WordPress plugins. So
very good plugins they are at all. And Brian's a great guy. He's when he's awake.
This is why I was late, actually.
Yeah, I knew that. He's got to get your Starbucks. I've got Uncle Spence. Spence, would you like to introduce yourself to the tribe?
It's Spence from WPLaunchify.com. Unsponsored this episode.
That's good.
I used all my sponsors up last episode.
Yeah, I think you did, actually. I got my friend John Locke, my long-term suffering friend that has to deal with my madness. You're muted, John, as well.
Yeah, John from Lockdown SEO.
That's great. And before we go into the main WordPress and tech stories of the week, I've got a few messages from our major sponsors. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. I'd like to point out we've got some great special offers from the sponsors, some great recommendations of WordPress plugins, services, and a load of other stuff. You can get all these goodies by going over to WP-Tonic/recommendations, and you'll find it all there, tribe. What more could you ask for? So let's go straight into it. I think there is only one major story of the week. DigitalOcean requires Cloudways. Brian, you were part of still are a bit of equity owner, I think, I'm not sure, of Kinster. Yeah. What did you make of this news, DigitalOcean requiring Cloudways? What do you make of it, Brian?
That one caught me actually by surprise. Like, there's been a lot of WordPress acquisitions, I feel like, over the last year, but that one definitely caught me by surprise. And I think most companies, to be honest, are all going for acquisitions, whether they say so or not. At some point, the CEOs, C-level managers, all those people, they get tired and they just want to be done at that point, or move on to other things. So I don't know if this is where they were headed from the beginning, if they were just heading for an exit, or they just thought they found a good partnership with DigitalOcean. I've worked on quite a few Cloudways sites, so I've used their dashboard quite a bit with clients and stuff. And so I know it's pretty intertwined with DigitalOcean already. So, I think it makes sense for them to acquire them if they want to get a tighter integration. It makes sense in that regard. But yeah, I'm happy for their team. I think I've met many of them at WordCamps. I talked with lots of them on Twitter, and so yeah, they have a great team, and I know they worked really, really hard to get where they're at. So I'm happy for them.
Yes, so Naisha, what do you reckon about this?
It was a surprise to me as well. Cloudways was actually a sponsor of Master WP. So it was.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was like we're gonna stop plugging them this week. What's going on? But yeah, it caught me as a surprise too. But as Rob tweeted, if you sponsor Master WP, there's a big possibility you might get acquired and get millions of dollars. So that's something for everybody to think about.
I just love it. You're natural, I can tell. So, Uncle Spencer, what do you reckon?
Yeah. I like your. By the way, I like that line of thinking. Along that line of thinking, I personally want to take credit for this acquisition. I think it had to do with my caching article that appeared at Master WP. I've heard. No, but Cloudways is my go-to recommendation because of the way they handle everything up front, all jokes aside, with allowing full control over caching and varnish and so forth. Plus, they work with one of our clients, Till, who provides object cache. And all the things you need in Cloudways are, for at least objective purposes, in the control of the site owner or the person working on the site, unlike WP Engine and some other name brands that we've already talked about. So I like that they've been acquired by DigitalOcean because DigitalOcean has apparently enormous resources. And this is just another example of how the consolidation is happening. But unlike other acquisitions, this is not a going off into some room to die. This is 100%. The Cloudways is just going to have more resources to do what they do. And there is some kind of digital feedback, Jonathan, despite whatever you say, because I just heard something echo back to me. So.
Yeah, I just pressed a button. He's becoming like my oldest co-host, Bill. He's becoming the sound nutsy on the quiet. John, what did you make of this, John?
Another week, another WordPress business gets acquired. I mean, it's kind of a common theme over the last year or year and a half. It'll be really interesting to see what DigitalOcean does here, and do they start challenging some of the more incumbent hosting companies head to head, like WP Engine and Kinsta and Liquid Web. We will see.
Yeah, well, they must be joyous about that news, mustn't they? So I would imagine Brian's already wondering about his equity. So Sally, what did you make of this?
I think it makes enormous sense for DigitalOcean, which, I mean, they give you really like bare bones server space here, install something. And if you don't, if you don't know what you're doing, you can't really take advantage of DigitalOcean. Now, my husband, being the geek he is like, well, but it's really not that hard to provision a server on DigitalOcean. And if you know something about it, I suppose not. But for ordinary people, there's a reason that Cloudways had a successful business, and other companies whose job it is to help make the on-ramp for these cloud hosting providers easier. So it seems like a no-brainer for DigitalOcean to acquire Cloudways, because it should help them bring in lots more customers. And so I think it's likely to be successful. It's a sensible pairing. I wasn't expecting it, but I just I don't pay attention to who might be likely to acquire whom, and it's one of those things where, well, I wasn't expecting it, but it made immediate sense when I saw the news.
I just dream of that day when I'm bought by GoDaddy and I can just say nice things about them, because they.
I mean,
for 2 years they owe my soul and every part of me. So I just
it's worth mentioning that DigitalOcean was one of the 5 hosting companies offered inside of Cloudways, and DigitalOcean could have come right out and sort of said, we're going to kick out essentially the other 4 choices or something like that, and we're going to acquire your customers. But the fact that they're not doing that is interesting, because it's a lot like in the bottling industry, where there's like maybe 3 bottlers and they have 47 brands, and even though they own the brands, they're all on the shelf to give people perception and, in factual case, choices. And I think that's what's really interesting, because you don't have to kind of like double take on everybody when you acquire a company, and I think that'll be useful for them.
I just think probably, I don't know for sure, I don't know. I just would imagine that Cloudways is small beer to DigitalOcean. I don't know what, because Cloudways is a private company, and I don't even know if is DigitalOcean still a private company or is it a public? I
No,
don't
it's public.
actually. I would imagine Cloudways is small beer to the kind of turnover that DigitalOcean's doing, but who knows? I might be totally wrong about that. I normally am, Tribe. Totally wrong. But it doesn't stop me, does it? I think we killed the panel. They showed no enthusiasm for this major spot. What are you going to say? That's the point.
Well,
This guy.
one last thing I was going to point out too is that I think they're very different than like Kinsta or WP Engine or Pagely, which I guess is technically now GoDaddy, another one acquired. But like when I was at Kinsta, like we weren't really, to be honest, really competing with Cloudways that much, which might be surprising to some. They're very different types of customers, in my opinion. Now that might change with DigitalOcean based on what they're pushing. You know, maybe they're going to push more managed stuff with Cloudways, but the Cloudways were always more people that were like tinkerers, and that's not really what we were getting at Kinsta. So it's or WP Engine. So I think it's still very two different types of customers, but yeah, I think it's going to be a positive for Cloudways and DigitalOcean. I think
DigitalOcean has a $4.4 billion market cap.
Yeah, I think Cloudways is just a small beer
On the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, it's just small beer, really.
Well,
some loose. I think it's just loose.
Based on the sale price, you can estimate that Cloudways' revenues are a percentage, obviously, of the $300 and something million. So you guess under $100 million. I'm sure it's probably maybe half of that, maybe $50 million, which is still really, really generous for what it is. And this is the third or fourth company of these founders. But DigitalOcean Holdings is huge. So.
Yeah, it's small. It's loose change for them, in other words. On to just bonkers, really, isn't it? On to the next story. This should get the panel going a bit. You never know, though. A prominent vaccine skeptic returns to Twitter. Oh, somebody's already rolling their eyes. So Nashier, you rolled your eyes there. So I think I've got to ask you, what do you think of it's from the Atlantic. So what's your thoughts about this prominent vaccine skeptic and his crusade, his determination to get back onto Twitter?
Gosh, I could say so much, but
yeah, please do. That's why you're here.
I will say at this point where, everyone in the United States are pretty much ignoring the virus, not saying that's what they should do. I absolutely hate that. Will it be as big of a deal now as it was? That's my question about it. It should, but, will it?
Well, I thought the interesting panel was that, obviously Uncle Spence will give his because of his experience. 101, you always say we can't comment on the company's policy. You just don't get into a discussion on Slack with a user. Secondly, but I thought the other thing that our beloved government actually seemed to be kind of influencing Twitter to get him off, basically. So Uncle Spence, that piqued my interest on various levels, this article. What's your own thoughts?
I mean, the guy, whatever the reason was for him getting on, it's sort of besides the point. I mean, it's like somebody who got in trouble for talking about a horse race or something, good or bad or otherwise, got kicked off, and now the horse race is over, hopefully. And, now they're like, you can come back to the racetrack. Okay, great. But the bigger thing is, which I'll tie this story to, is that I was really pleased personally, although I'm not really, I like to be apolitical. I'm obviously very liberal in a fairness sense. I saw this week how the White House this administration finally started using Twitter to shut down those out of control lunatic Republicans that were complaining about people getting their college loans forgiven. Like the one douchebag got $200 million of PPP loans complaining about hard work or something. And
yeah, but they worked for that money, not these students.
But I'm saying, Marjorie Greene, $190,000.
Their great grandfathers worked for that.
Matt Gates, $54,000. Like, you just go down the list of these
After they took it
douchebags.
away from Naisha's grandparents.
They're reckless. These young people, they're reckless. They've been taught the wrong message by getting some of their debt.
Do as we
forgiven.
say, not as we do, because okay, so the takeaway from me is I am obviously liberal towards, as a capitalist, fair is fair is fair. If a huge corporation should get some benefit, the single mom or dad or whatever, the waiter, waitress should get the same access to that stuff.
Can I be
so
really?
Twitter levels the playing field of calling people out. If you are a nut job like this guy was, and after the horse race is over, you're still whining about vaccine this and that, it's like, whatever, go talk into the well, because like we already know that the vaccines made a difference in a positive way. So you're just like blah 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 blah. You're like Alex Jones.
I just want to comment on this student loan thing. I'm being very cynical here. Surprise, surprise, panel. I just think Biden, the banks lent on Biden because the delinquency rates are going up, and they just got Biden just to spew out 100 million to because they knew they weren't going to get paid from these students anyway, so they just lent on him.
They don't want
and let
anybody
me
else to get the same benefit that they've been getting all along. Sorry, John.
let me point this out too. He did not do this using an executive action. He used this using legislation that was passed by Republicans during the Bush era under the HEROES Act.
Yeah, but it's the wrong people, John. It's not the right. It's not the right people that should, the top 1%.
The bigger thing that I want to talk about, yeah. The bigger thing I want to point out, like with the people getting back on Twitter, or getting kicked off Twitter, or all these platforms are fearful of people dying from the virus, so they know that it's real, and then they'll be sued by the families. So that's why they took action. But a lot of these people who have podcasts, or they're authors, or they have some kind of grift going, like Alex Jones or whoever, their whole thing is to incite white grievance, because in the history of the United States and of Western culture, white people tell everybody else what to do, and nobody tells them what to do. So when you say, like, you should take this vaccine, to protect everybody else, they're like, I'm not going to do that. That's rules are for everybody else, not for us. So, yeah. So,
Brian, the other part that interests me about this story is that they utilize artificial intelligence to make this chart that the White House had that showed them who were the leading influencers that were spewing propaganda in their view, and then they used it. I thought that was because it's kind of linked to one of the other stories that I've listed, how artificial intelligence is probably being utilized for the dark side, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one too, and I actually don't know what a good solution for that, because the spam on Twitter right now is just horrible. I mean, and you see all the stuff about Elon Musk and trying to clean up the spam and all the bots and all this stuff in the news and stuff. But again, I'm for free speech. So, like, I'm a big Bitcoiner. I'm probably, over the last 2 years, I'm more anti-government than I probably have ever been. And
bless your little heart.
And so I'm just, I think having free speech is important. But you do have to draw a line somewhere. So, when it comes to stuff that's dangerous, but then who decides what's dangerous? So I don't know. That is a really tough one. And then to use AI to determine what is dangerous and what isn't, that's even trickier. So I really don't know
what could possibly go wrong, Brian.
But I definitely don't like one party like determining like they should, ban more people on this platform than the other platform. I definitely don't like that. But again, I don't know what a good solution to that is. I tend to use a bunch of social media blockers, so I try to just stay out of all this stuff. And I just follow like people on Twitter lists, that just the people I really want to see. So I don't
Do you
like.
do you block
browse
me,
Twitter.
Brian?
Do I what?
Block me?
No, I don't like you. I see a lot of most of the stuff I look at is just WordPress and Bitcoin, to be honest. That's all I see. I don't look at politics. I don't ever go on Twitter just to browse Twitter. Like I literally just see certain topics. So, but yeah, it's a tough one. I don't know what the solution to that is. And then the vaccine stuff with COVID, I think complicated. I mean, I got vaccinated. I have an autoimmune disease, so I took it out of risk. And when I got COVID, I was out for like 30 days, like almost in the hospital. And so, I mean, I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't gotten the vaccine. So
You would have probably died, Brian.
Yeah, because I think the biggest misconception is people think it stops you from getting COVID. No, it doesn't. It stops you from dying if you get COVID. It's not going to stop you from getting it.
That's a result, isn't it? That's a result, though, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah, it is. But again, I'm not for also mandatory vaccines either. So it's a tricky, you can do whatever you want with your own body. So I'm pro that. So it's over the last 2 years, I think everybody's like choosing different sides, and it's getting really crazy out there, in my opinion.
I think it's a bit of a cop out. I think the law, Uncle Spencer's, there's strict laws about slander, about shouting out fire, cinema and cool. There's a framework out there, there's always been boundaries when it was radio, newspaper. They just want they want boundaries. These platforms want boundaries when it suits them, and they don't want boundaries when it doesn't suit them. They want their cake and eat it at the same time. What do you reckon, Nashia? You're nodding your head in agreement, which is a good tactic with me.
I agree. Have any of you all read World War Z? Not seen the movie because it's different. World War Z, the zombie novel. So okay,
I don't have to read. I don't have to read those.
I saw the movie.
I've got this panel to do that.
Gotcha. So a lot of things that happen. So it's about a zombie outbreak or whatever. And a lot of things that happened in that novel, it kind of happened with COVID. And one of the big things they had to kind of stop misinformation about the virus was like something called Radio Free Earth, where people from all over the world, different countries, spoke different languages. They got together and they tried to just stop misinformation about the virus because, miseducation, they say in the book, was killing more people than the virus at one point. So I think that a lot about COVID. I think that was something that we would need. Like, we just need like a group, like, the CDC, the WHO, to come together and do that. But that book was written in 2003. I don't think that they anticipated that we would have, if we set up a Radio Free Earth, we set up these organizations that told everybody, this is false information, this is true information. We would have several more people set up their own saying, no, this is what I think. If you go outside and cover yourself in dirt, you'll be okay. If you eat a newborn horse, you'll be okay. So I think what you're saying is, like, people should have freedom of speech. I'm with Brian. People ask me that all the time, about Master WP, you gotta say, but it's.
I was reassured that our former president, Mr. President Papa Trump, as I call him, Papa Trump, was getting vaccine advice from Dr. Oz. That just fills you with joy, doesn't it? That he had a direct line to Papa Trump. What could go wrong?
Yeah, but my point with that is that it's just so much misinformation out there. It's so many people discrediting like the World Health Organization, the CDC, people we look to for information. I'm sorry, like, you should have freedom of speech, but there's a limit. People are dying. It's like, the question is, who can say what's the boundary? If somebody dies, you need to be shut up. I'm sorry. Every life is precious. That's not like a pro-choice thing.
Some aren't really, are they? Let's be frank. You've been
I have to have that to an extent. Terms and conditions may vary, but for right now, that's what I'm going to say.
Some lives are pretty dismal, aren't they? Let's be frank about it. We haven't got many in the audience. Normally, we have some fantastic comments from the live audience. It must be August. They're all gone out, So let's let's go on to the other story. Oh, thank God for this. Announcing Spectra 2.0. It's like a white horse charging in that's going to save Gutenberg. It's just, I've been playing around with it, and I'm so relieved that some force out there has got hold of this nightmare of a project and is going to save it. And it's really fantastic. So Spencer, what do you think about that now? I'm so relieved that somebody's actually do something decent for this project. What do you reckon?
Okay, in context, I have a good working relationship, and I've always been a big fan of what Sujay is doing across the board, especially with Astra, which is really one of the most popular, if not the most popular, themes. I've discussed ad nauseum how I think full site editing is a complete waste of time and a distraction. So if you look at the major themes like Astra, Cadence, Generate Press, and so forth, and I'm not including Divi and Elementor as a purposeful thing, you can do an amazing amount of stuff. But what I find interesting about Spectra is how you take the thing that is not a visual website builder and you make it a visual website builder by the way you present it. So as a marketer, I really love what they've done here, but it's other people should take note, because all Spectra is a container full of Gutenberg blocks.
Oh no, it's a beautiful UX design, and you can tell they put some thought in. You're such a
hold on. Not true. Okay. Not true at all, Jonathan. It is the Ultimate Gutenberg Blocks Collection version 2, and it's exactly the same as Cadence blocks, or it's exactly the same as the other block collections. There is a separate plugin for starter templates as well as a hosting thing, and there's a separate number of other add-ons for Astra that you can buy a la carte. My point is not a negative comment. It's to say they've taken the idea that WordPress customers look at Elementor or Divi as a thing now. Like, it's Elementor's the whole WordPress ecosystem because it's a visual builder. And they've just taken one little part of it, the blocks, put together with the theme and other marketing to help people feel like what they're getting is the same thing. And I think that's what WordPress would have, could have, should have been doing all along, and still could do, is if you just present WordPress as a cohesive platform, simple for anyone, everybody gets it. So this is a lesson in how to really do good marketing. Yeah. And one of the things that I do personally in this ecosystem is to act like a Rosetta Stone. You know, the launch kit thing is to say, look, instead of going through 64,000 plugins, here's the stack of stuff that for free you can start with. And
I don't admire how you link this to your own product. I'm very
because this is one plugin that's existed for years with a new name, but read the copy. Build ultra fast websites using our visual website builder. It's not a builder. It's Gutenberg.
Yeah, right. Fair enough.
Spectra is just
blocks. Right. Yeah, I agree with you there. So, John,
like, this is an example of where are you going on with this commentary, because you're just creating like.
I just like letting you go. That's my job to get the panel working.
White noise generator for no good reason on my comment.
I'll sell you. My ability to get people rattled is unlimited. So, John, I'm so relieved, John. This nightmare that is Gutenberg, I just see some light at the end of the channel. This godforsaken parasitic field project might actually do. Somebody's come to the rescue. Actually worked out some decent UX design and got this poxy project somewhere where it might be usable. What do you reckon, John?
Yeah, I mean. Until the day that Gutenberg is all that Automatic envisions it to be, we'll have products like this to fill the gap. So another product of dozens. But yeah, it does look like a pretty good UX. Looks pretty awesome. So I have to say, like, I have client sites that are on Gutenberg too, and editing sometimes is very buggy. Like there'll be, I'm not saying this to disparage Gutenberg, but there are bugs still, and it frustrates clients because they don't understand what's going on, and that's the biggest thing. Is they look at WordPress as buggy. So
Yes.
yeah,
Actually, I'm just relieved, dear. You know, I just see light at the end. I'm sick of tired of talking about this Poxy project and its inability to go anywhere at any speed. You know, what's your thoughts on this?
If you were
So
really sick of talking about it, you might stop.
Well, it's a WordPress podcast, isn't it, Sally? You know, that is a slight problem, isn't it? You know, in the tavern, that's all they ever talk about is freaking Gutenberg blocks, isn't it? So what do you reckon, dear?
I like, well, I hesitate to say this. God forbid someone throw a brick through my window. I like full site editing, and I think it will definitely help the project. That's
Don't worry, we'll be getting bricks together because
Oh,
I'm all Gutenberg all the time.
well, thank you for giving me a warning.
I am also.
I am. I want to use Gutenberg. I want to give up on these other Poxy page. And not be nasty to them. Good luck to them. But this bloody project needs some direction, and it needs to get into a state where it doesn't rely on third-party people to come and save it. But
WordPress has never been in that state. It has always required plugins to make WordPress actually the thing that you need to do the things that you need to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, Brian, what do you reckon, my beloved friend?
I mean,
Brian?
I'm pro Gutenberg. I think when Gutenberg first came out, I'm talking like really beta, like first came out. I wrote an article on Kinsta kind of bashing Gutenberg, but I completely publicly came out saying I changed my mind. We changed the article.
You saw the it was that moment on the road to Damascus, and heavens, and you saw the light. Was it, Brian?
I think it does take a while to like understand what they're trying to do and see like where it's going. But I am with Spencer. Like I'm a fan of. I've been using Generate Blocks now for a while, and I think Tom over at Generate Press and Generate Blocks is doing the same thing Spencer said about like Spectra. They're taking what blocks should be and they're envisioning a thing around it and displaying it better for the user. Now, I think Generate Blocks is more for tinkerers. It's kind of like the cloud ways of, what do you call them? Block builders, I guess you could say now. We have a new category of block builders. And Spectra is probably going more for the Elementor crowd, where it's more, just give me the easy UI, drag stuff where you want it, good to go. Whereas Generate Blocks is definitely not that. You have to spend time understanding kind of how blocks work. But the cool thing is you can still design pretty much literally anything with the block system. Like it's actually really, really powerful. Now, speaking to what John said, there are lots of bugs. I just filed one the other day in GitHub, like big bugs. There's still stuff that exists that need to be fixed, but I think we'll get there eventually. But again, like Sally said, I think
Brian, this is 3 years into this godforsaken project. No, 4 years in 5 years into this godforsaken. Come off it, Brian. It's a freaking train wreck.
But how long were we on the classic editor? Like a decade, more than a decade? I mean, it.
And how many people did not use some kind of plugin to make that editor do things that it didn't do?
Exactly. Yeah. And
I will be the train wreck. I mean, sorry, Brian, to interrupt you, but like the train wreck conversation is over, Jonathan. It's fine. We're well into the wheels are greased and it's moving.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
And I'm the biggest. I'm not a fan of Elementor, even though I'm a fan of what they did for the space. But I think they're detracting from the ecosystem as far as like now they're doing their own cloud thing too, which having worked at a hosting provider, I have different opinions on that. But they're basically
you feel some kind of way about that.
It's not a great day for your equity in Kinsta, is it? Really,
I don't like products that silo you off, especially in the WordPress ecosystem, because I feel like that's the antithesis of what WordPress is. So I'm going to name a couple names here. I don't mind because I'm say this on my blogs anyway. So like Azoic, it's an ad network that you can use, but they silo you off so you can't use any optimization plugins. Now you have Mediavine on the other hand. They're completely open to any optimization plugins you want to do. Same type of thing. It's the same with Elementor. Like they're siloing you off from using anything else in WordPress almost. And I just have a huge problem with products and services that do that. And they're heading further and further down that route. So it's like when an Elementor client reaches out for help to me, I'm like, sorry, I can't do anything for you. So that's not what WordPress has ever been to me. I think products like Generate Blocks, even Spectra, like they should work within the ecosystem so that everything, you can use whatever you want. So, but
yeah, I think Elementor, that's their direct, that's where they want to go. They want to build a cloud-based SaaS that competes with Wix and the other SaaS providers like Squarespace. That's their vision, and as they progress, they want to drop WordPress, don't they? They want to make it more a enclosed system, don't they? It's obvious that's what their plan is. All right,
but that also shows you how much improvement we still need to work on in the ecosystem. That's why Elementor got so big so fast, was the current ecosystem is not good enough for the majority of users. So that's why they're going to Elementor. So there's still a lot of work to be done. I think it can be done. It's just, it will take time, I think.
Well, I think there's bigger issues than that. I think there's some fundamental changes in the whole way WordPress is run for that optimistic statement to be actually achieved. It won't be just achieved out of just the ether. It has to be worked on. And the past few weeks we've been discussing that, Brian, what needs to be done so that vision can actually happen. So I think it's time for our break, beloved panel guests, and we'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. We've had a bit of a discussion. The panel seemed very civilized to me this week. I'm sure Spencer's got some remarks for me. I can rattle Spencer up quite easily. But before we go on to the other stories, I do a weekly newsletter. You want to sign up? You know, it's almost as good as Master WP, but not quite. But you will read my weekly editorial where I take some target and I have a go at it. Uncle Spencer's supposed to produce something, and I've offered it to the rest of the panel. We see if they can knock up something and they want to join me in being marked as deviants in the WordPress community. There we go. There we go. The panel.
I wouldn't have it any other way, really.
Yeah, there we are. I take it as a mark.
Which I would rather be like Groucho Marx and wonder why anybody would want me in their club than to be in that club of those other people. So
yeah, exactly. I've always been a loner, so I accept it. So God. On to the next story. Anyscale raises $99 million to build a distributed AI computer platform. It's a bit dry, and it came from the hostess of the Moses, Stephanie Hudson. She seemed to, and I thought, should I include it? And then I had a bit of a read up, and then I thought to myself, it really does show the future, because marketing automation, kind of linking AI and having open source platforms, you could also see what the future of WordPress could be in some ways. About, you know, in some ways I see, and it's linked to Spencer's vision of WordPress being a platform, and you have this Lego, and you click the Lego on top of the platform thing. So, Brian, what was your thoughts of them getting 99 million? And it all seems very exciting, doesn't it, Brian?
I mean, I think at this point we're past the thing of like AI is the future or not. I think everyone can agree that like AI is happening whether we like it or not. I honestly, this article I had to read it like twice because there was a lot of companies I had no clue who they even were in this article.
I had to do a bit of a dive, and I thought I was onto it a little bit, and then I realised I know nothing. You know?
And to be honest, I don't keep up with a lot of the AI news either. But I think there is a lot of cool stuff happening. At the marketing side is where I don't know. I've always been such a hands-on person, like to do things myself. So I've never really been a huge proponent of like automating SEO or automating anything because I like to do it myself, and maybe that's just a personal thing. But again, maybe now I'm just like giving away my age too. Maybe I'm now old, I guess.
Brian, you are an infant.
Thanks, Brian. Can you imagine what I'm feeling with you saying that? Thanks a lot, Brian.
But I'm
going off you, Brian. I've always liked you.
But yeah, I think AI is here to stay, and obviously, them getting 99 million in funding is no joke. And so, but again, I think it'll be interesting to see where 5 years from now we are with all the AI stuff. I think
it was because I had a little article about the former founder of WeWorks. He's got 350 million, that toe rag, and that these people, and it's from the same source. It's like, really, really good investing and really bad investing. What could go wrong in investing in that toe rag and his wife? What could go wrong? So Sally, what did you reckon about this?
Well, I don't know much of anything about any of these companies. I do think, AI is certainly, already the present, never mind the future, and it's going to be happening. And I saw an interesting discussion about, how most imaginings of AI are, and most of its appearances in fiction and so on have been very sort of negative and end of the world, and that this probably tells you more about the people doing the imagining than it necessarily does about AI. But of course, if those people are the ones creating the AI, it is likely to, exist in their image and be somewhat malevolent. And the real challenge is, can we imagine and create an AI that is not just like carrying on the mission of colonization?
So, Uncle Spencer, anybody asks me what they should do career-wise, I think it's learn Python, isn't it? Really, really quick. If you want to secure living for the next 20 years, learn your Python, I would suggest.
I had a client this week, ironically, who got suckered into a $30,000 custom Python project when a $2,500 WordPress solution would have done just fine. So I code in a few languages, and coding is probably like number 45 on my list of things that I would say I know how to do. Nevertheless, Python, that's like learning Visual Basic or something. That is just not something I would say is a modern language to start learning and hope to make a living from. I would say one of those new, JavaScript-based language, Node.js or something maybe, but not Python. And the thing is, look who's funding this. It's just Andreessen Horowitz and their gajillions of dollars betting on more horses in the race, which we all know is going to happen. We all know AI is going to be everywhere. But
wait, this guy, is he as bad as I feel he is?
No, this is not an ad hominem attack. You're confusing it. Andreessen Horowitz, those two guys are fine. Andreessen made his money from Netscape and thereafter, and I had my own encounters with some of his. It's not him. It's that when you reach the stage, and just watch the old reruns of Silicon Valley, okay? When you reach the stage when you're living in that area, and I was fortunate enough to visit when I did a college tour with my kid who just started in December, it is gorgeous. But I will make a couple observations when you go to, the area over there. it's like visiting a country club that is a part of a state, because the people there have so much money and so much capital. Their decisions are not the normal decisions that regular human beings make, right? Like once you it's the old John Lennon quote or whatever, but like once you've reached the necessities being taken care of in life, lots of people go various ways, but more money doesn't make you nicer, smarter, make you anything else. It just amplifies your normal behavior. And in this country club bubble, they're controlling trillions of dollars of private capital that has nowhere else to go. So they start throwing in at these inventions like AI, because they know that ultimately that's going to be so ingrained into everything that they'll have more control. And think of the Koch brothers right now, or think of any of the media companies like Fox and so forth. They control everything because they have the entire coverage over every single drip and drop that gets distributed. And that's what's going on here, is that this company has got a good idea, $199 million. And Andreessen's able to put money into it because his investors are like, yeah, we're gonna have our hooks into that line of business too. And it's a worthy risk. And that's the risk for anything. It has nothing to do with the software. It has to do with like, what will this software be used for? And just think of one last movie reference, is just go watch. It's a really great movie, but watch Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where, you know, the precognitive, whatever those people were, just tell the cops to go pick people up based on things they think are going to happen. That's where this kind of stuff is going.
That is one of my favorite movies, by the way.
It's a great movie, right? And it ends with humanity overcoming the AI for at least the 5 minutes that it happens. And the bad cop is the chief of police is a metaphor for all the politicians and the other people in the venture capital world who think, oh, we're just making money, it's all good. But in reality, what they're doing is selling humanity down the pipe.
Oh, cryptocurrency, the blockchain will come to our rescue. That's what Brian's thinking. What is it with these crypto jocks, as I call them? I keep listening to the conversations, and about 10 minutes in, I don't understand what a bloody word they're saying. You know, what is it, Brian?
That's a whole nother podcast. That's a rabbit hole to go down. I could speak for hundreds of hours on crypto, and however,
but why can't they speak English though, Brian?
I mean, it's hard for a new user to understand. Like, I've tried to explain Bitcoin to my parents, and it takes many, many tries of explaining. It's very hard to explain to them, and it's just the AI part of the stuff, though, with crypto or the blockchain. That's actually what I'm more interested in, to see what happens with the money side of things with AI. That's because right now, if you're talking about crypto, like we're talking about comparing it to financial legacy systems of, like, you know, wiring money and all this stuff. Like, I would love to see more automation in that realm. And that's, in my opinion, that's what crypto and Bitcoin and stuff like that is trying to do. But
all right,
I don't want to go off on a tangent on.
Right, there we go. I'm going to go on to a much more important article. It's number 5. And we've got the writer of it here. WordPress community engagement, the best WordPress accounts to follow on Twitter. Nashaya. The big question is, why wasn't I on your list? This is this is the big question. You know, I was shocked hollered when I read it, and I was not. And I'm sure Uncle Spencer feels the same.
I didn't even know you had a Twitter account.
I'm not going to respond to that.
I'm
just deeply puzzled.
Every time I get controversial, I get taken down.
There you go. Can you answer the question, though? You know.
Yes. So I'm deeply hurt. You know, I'm like your number one fan. So I'm deeply hurt that you think I wouldn't include you. But let me tell you why I didn't include you. So I was watching the panel with Brian, our tech director, was on. And, you know, a lot of y'all expressed like the feelings that you didn't really like Twitter. So I was like, well, you don't really tweet that much. I'll just go on past you. But I still love and adore you. And I'm still number one in the fan club. Also, this article.
I just love this panel show. This is my day, because I certainly don't get Uncle Spencer saying that about me.
But Twitter, I use Twitter for a lot of positive reasons, but every time I get on or I read something in WordPress, it's like, "Oh, Twitter is the worst. Can you believe what they did on Twitter?" And I just really wanted to highlight some positive things we can do on Twitter. I have almost, that's going to be a lie. Never mind. I have a lot of positive interactions on Twitter. So why not highlight some of those? I'm tired of people like using it in a negative way. If you keep using it and referring to it in a negative way, it's going to be negative for you. And you're probably not fun. I have fun on Twitter. I get to back up my bestie Spencer and my bestie John. And maybe if Jonathan tweets some more, my bestie Jonathan. So I just want more people in the community to communicate.
Yeah, but to be serious for a moment, how do you
Mm-hmm.
personally keep a barrier that, obviously on any social network where you're prepared to comment and engage, you're going to get negativity. And some people say
Mm-hmm.
that Twitter and other are extremely, they feel bullied, and they're not happy about it. And
Mm-hmm.
how have you dealt? Because I'm sure you've got some remarks made, no matter how nice, and then how do you mentally deal with it? Or do you just understand you're on it and deal with it?
It's a combination of that, especially as I became a bigger person in the WordPress community, because most of the hate we got at first was directed at the Master WP account. So definitely I've seen a lot of hate, especially when we talk about race and diversity and gender. People get very feral when you talk about that. Like, why are you making me? I'm making them think about that. So, I mean, do blocking. I block quickly. I'm not going to sit there and stew in negativity. Sometimes I respond, sometimes I don't. But also, I think because I'm a millennial, I've been, well, not as much as Generation Z, but I've been in social media for a very long time. These are just people. They wouldn't say that to my face. When I see these people at WordCamp, they're not going to say anything to me. So it's like, for me, it's like, whatever, block, buy, whatever, block, buy. And Rob will pay you to disagree with us. If you disagree with Master WP, you can write for us and get paid. So, and people don't
You
want
get
that.
paid.
You could
He
get
never told.
paid.
He never told me that. Oh, that's why
Oh.
Spencer wrote for him. He never bloody told me that one.
Well, I'm your new bestie, so I'm telling you. And so I'm just like, if you don't want it, I'll tell people like, hey, you disagree with me that much. Why don't you write and get paid? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Well, shut up. I don't care then. I'm offering you money. I'm offering all this stuff. Why should I listen to you? Shut up. Get out of my face. So that's how I deal with it.
Shut up.
I suspect a lot of what one experiences on Twitter has to do with like who you follow. And I pretty much only follow like people I know, people I have met or seen or heard of, like some of the authors I read and so on, who seem interesting. And sometimes, I will follow somebody and end up unfollowing them because they have more negativity or hostility than I expected. But most of the time, I see like the usual sort of irritating ads from companies of no relevance or interest, but that's no more offensive than advertising anywhere. And the few times I've had a really negative experience has tended to be when I have opened my big fat mouth about something I really didn't know anything about and hadn't been invited to discuss.
Well, that's all my comments. So, John, I'm such an empty shrill. I'm so empty, John. The only thing I was interested when I read this, that I wasn't on the list. And I'm sure that everybody else in the, that was the main thing that probably got everybody in the WordPress community going. We weren't one of the chosen, I'm such an empty head, don't I, John?
Yeah.
I'm such an empty head, don't
I? I'll just say this, yes. There's a lot of these, there's like a lot of this like cool kids club list. This is one of the things that I truly love about Master WP and what Rob and Ali and Naisha and all the rest of the team are doing, is they are actually doing what we've been asking people to do for several years now, which is represent the community the way the community actually is. And I'm glad that like more organizations and outlets are starting to follow suit. They're starting to see the light.
Well, it was becoming a total yawn fest, wasn't it? I know.
I don't want to hear about the same like 25 like white people that have been on these lists of like who to follow in WordPress for the last like
No, to be
15
truthful,
years.
the prospects going
It's
Well,
on.
you don't
boring.
need to put them on a list because people are already following them.
I know.
Like the prospect of going on post status Slack channel is a bit like me wanting to see
They're
my
trying.
local
They're
donkey.
trying. I'm not going to just no. They're trying.
You're trying. I'm sorry.
They're
I'm
trying.
nasty, and I just have to have a
I
pop.
got to say this. People say, people talk about negativity on Twitter. And yes, I say some things on Twitter, and
You're smiling there. It's
I've
true,
gotten in
though,
trouble on
isn't it?
Twitter.
It's your fest.
I've come at people on Twitter, but I'll tell you, I've had a lot of people say some very hurtful things to me on Twitter too, and maybe I deserve that. But it's like Nye said, they would never say that to my face, and a lot of these people have had opportunity to say it to my face, and they don't do it. They do like their little subtweets and things like
suppose it's
that.
my
There's a lot of
English.
people are freaking cowards. So, it is what it is. And that's, it's fine. I'll tell you, I love Twitter because there is a window into so many other things.
I know you instill fear into people. I know when they see a comment from John Locke, they know something's coming their way. I can actually,
I love Twitter, especially now. Like one of the features that I love is Spaces, because you can get perspectives that you would normally not be able to get. And a lot of people that I've followed over the past few years, I've learned a lot and from them, and I just want to give props to that. So
I think Sally understands this. I'm English, aren't I, Sally? The more friendlier you get with people, the more snarly remarks you're allowed. English humour is about taking the piss out of people in general. And
now you're starting to sound like Stefan's description of the Dutch. You are as rude as possible to the people that you know best. This is a little bit of a culture shock to me, because actually the people that you know well and live with deserve having you be nice to them at least occasionally. I mean, yes, you should be able to say off the wall things to them sometimes, but if you are actually sort of continually hostile and argumentative, you may find that you're not as close to them anymore.
That's the English way. You go down the pub, you knock a few beers, and you get a bit snarly with your friends. The old banter stuff.
I love it.
Shag the donkey, as they say. There we go. You had to say that, didn't you? You were just waiting for that, weren't you? He was just wanting to say that. Are you getting paid?
You need that as like a sound effect, right? That you can just drop.
I need Shag the donkey. There we go.
Welcome back.
Spill his coffee. Look, stop that. Old Brian will spill his coffee, and he needs it to keep him awake during this podcast. He's wondering every time he comes on it. He wonders why he bothered.
I can tell. I've missed the banter. I can tell.
Yeah, like hell you do. On to the last story, because T-Mobile and SpaceX gets to announce something special. Well, apart from the flowery language. It is amazing, isn't it, what they're going to do, isn't it, in a way? What do you reckon, Brian? It is, going to get coverage everywhere.
I'm actually a huge kind of Starlink fan, but it's because my dad's a pastor and he has a couple churches, but one's like way out in the boonies. Like I'm talking like way out in the middle of the woods. There's no internet. There's no cell phone coverage. And they wanted to live stream the services. And like, there's no way to do it. And they got Starlink and they were getting like 50 megs down, like in the middle of nowhere. And so I actually think what they're doing, regardless of what, your thoughts about Elon Musk are, like, I think actually Starlink is actually really cool technology. And it's definitely helping places like that are rural, like getting connected to the internet, which is I think is really cool. But partnering, I guess this is about partnering with T-Mobile, right? Like a merger or something together.
Yeah, T-Mobile. I'm with them.
I think more
you
of a
know.
joint venture than a merger, but
Okay, yeah. So it couldn't tell like by reading that like what it was actually going to be. I think it's just hinting right now, right, at what it could
Yeah,
possibly be.
I'm not. They probably don't know themselves, do they?
Yeah. But I think, I mean, if it ends up with more people getting connected, I think that's a great thing. So, I don't know if it's good to have them.
I watched the video. They seem to suggest at the end of next year they might have something working where it seamlessly, if you're in an area where there's no coverage, it will connect to Starlink and you'll have some through T-Mobile. That's what they.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it was all a bit vague, wasn't it? So Uncle Spence, I think I was trying to find an optimistic end to this podcast. So I thought it was a good news story. What do you reckon, Uncle Spence?
Yeah, I have good news to report on my experiment. So I have over here in Alexander Graham Bell land of Chicago, I am on Xfinity cable for $97 a month. By the way, their retail $97 is more reliable, as I've said before, than their premium business because it uses any of the 6 channels on the cable, whereas the premium one, you can only use the one business thing, and that always got messed up. So for $400 a month, I never had anything. For $97, it's pretty good. However, as you may have noticed a moment ago, and very frequently, because there's a construction zone around the corner, a new condo building, my Comcast keeps going down. So I got the new $25 Verizon 5G at home, $25 a month for super high band in a little box with a router and everything. And I was thinking, oh, I could throw this in the car and take this with me to a hotel or do whatever. I still can tether my phone, of course, but it's nice to have the one little box. Now, T-Mobile has that. What makes this whole thing of Starlink so obvious is that we have that same monopoly I was just discussing with the Andreessen Horowitz model, that mofos that have the cable here in Chicago have a complete lock on everybody. And in rural areas, even worse. As soon as somebody like Elon, who's like, I'm going to subsidize this because the stock traders are going to pay for the satellites and you guys get it for free or virtually for free, gets his hooks into it and then connects it to the 5G cellular and it works better. Watch how quickly the cost of Comcast cable goes down to like $2 a month. Okay.
That would be awesome because yes, I also live in Comcast
that is
land.
And just to wrap my whole, my whole horse metaphor, thank you, Stephanie Hudson, is that when that race takes off, it'll be just like the horse race in the text message game, and it'll be just like that in the WordPress hosting game that we're already seeing, which is nobody's going to be selling hosting anymore. They're going to be selling all of the concierge stuff around hosting. Hosting is going to be
I know a hosting provider that somebody on this panel that owns a hosting provider that does that model actually.
But they're not providing hosting, just like I'm tying this. Oh, because you made me do this. I'm tying this to my Astra metaphor. Astra is not providing a visual page builder. They have a bunch of components, including a plugin collection. But when they put it together and tell people it's a full system, people go, oh my God, it's so obvious to me what you're selling. Whereas if you try to sell them the parts, it isn't. When Starlink matches with cell phone and you can get your connection for any purpose for free. And while I've got that, of course, I'm going to pay you for the connection to Netflix and the connection to this other service. Like a McDonald's upsell, they'll spend $250 on all the upsells because they got the I can connect anywhere in the world thing for free. Ta-da.
Right.
Just that simple.
I'm gonna go on to the recommendations now because I don't want this being War and Peace. So, Uncle Spencer, can you do your recommendation? There's a ring at the door and I've got to go. So do your recommendation and then get one of the others to follow you. I'll be back in a second.
Okay. Welcome back, folks. My recommendation is I'm going to go with 2 today. I'm going to do disable admin notices individually. Free plugin that I don't know if any of you guys have noticed. This week, I noticed the new blue notices with the little gray tab at the bottom that are showing up everywhere instead of the old-fashioned ones. They are more annoying than ever because I don't know why WordPress doesn't built in the ability to override anything and dismiss it, because some of the authors are choosing to use these in most annoying ways. Like, I already asked you if you wanted this, but now I'm going to ask you again and again. So this plugin allows you to completely override all of those. And I think it should be the kind of thing built into WordPress. I'm going to just throw one thing in there too, is there was a service called Upward.ai that allows you to take long form content on your laptop right now and get rid of all the wasted words so that you can actually read it or listen to it very quickly, which is useful for anyone.
Yeah, I probably need that for every email I write to a client.
Yeah.
Right, thanks for that, Spencer. My recommendation is Adobe Express, a kind of web-based editor, photo editor, free at the present moment. Obviously, Adobe, I've got it, so how long it will be free. But if you're looking, there's a number of these web-based ones, but it looked pretty good. And like I say, it's totally free and have a butcher's at it. John, have you got a recommendation for our beloved tribe?
My recommendation is the repository, which is a WordPress newsletter that compiles and gives commentary on many of the things that are going on in the WordPress community.
John, you've been my friend for a long time now, and you'll recommend. No, there is only one newsletter, and that's the WP-Tonics one.
Oh, the Tonic brings the fire every week. I read it. I'm subscribed on 3 different emails. But definitely, if you want to get some commentary, the repository is a great one. You can find that at therepository.email.
So, Brian, you sent me a list of recommendations, I think, in your reply email, which another guest obviously didn't read. I've been horrible.
I just have 2 quick ones. One is this, it's called Pure Paste app, and it's completely free. It's for the Mac. I'm not sure if there's something similar on Windows, but actually I never really had this problem on Windows, I don't think. But it allows you to paste plain text. Like, it defaults to pasting plain text instead of like copying and pasting rich text. I copy so many things from Trello to Gmail to things where I don't want it messing with the formatting, and so it just
it's such a pain, isn't it? Oh, I'm gonna have to get this,
and then once in a while, like, you might have to go toggle it off, but like I'd rather have it off than the other way around. So for my workflow, I love it. I wish I'd found that app sooner. Instead of using the shortcut key, because the shortcut key changes in different apps too, so it's annoying. The other app is called Vivid. This is a paid app, but it's if you have a new MacBook Pro, they actually limited the brightness on the displays. You can crank them up twice as bright. Now, might sound strange, but when you're outside working in the sunshine, it's actually can be hard even at the max brightness right now.
Oh, I don't need that. I never leave this room, and, actually.
This app will actually, it goes from like, I think like, what is it, 600 nits to 1200 nits, which is probably blinding at that point. But you can just crank it past that outside, and it's inside I would not recommend it, but when you're outside in the sunshine, like working on the patio or something, it's actually really handy. I've been using it a little bit now.
They have a similar thing for Apple called Boost for your audio. Obviously, between speech and audio, there's a limit on at least the older MacBook Pros, and so I've used that for a while. It's similar. I don't know why they limit it, but it must be something to do with either protecting the hardware or their liability, or maybe they just don't want to run the battery out, probably.
Yeah, I think, I have the same thing with the display. They probably don't want to
So, Nashe, don't disappoint me. You've had all the show to think of something to recommend. Have you managed it, or are you going to pass?
I'm going to pass. I'm sorry, I was not prepared.
You're a lady, so I'm going to
read Master WP. Can I do that?
Your new
Master WP.
Yeah.
That's my recommendation. We're awesome. We're a list of writers from different places. If you get mad at something Rob said, please don't get mad at me. Rob said it, not me. I put that out there.
You said something. If only all the guest panelists took your attitude and said nice things about me all the time.
Of course.
Wink, wink, Brian. Keep saying nice things about me, Brian. There we go. You've got to sponsor my summit, even though you couldn't attend it. I sent you the link.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
don't
We
forget.
are
I'm going
bootstrapped.
to constantly,
We
I'm
are
going to constantly
bootstrapped.
remind you of that, Brian. Sally, have you got a recommendation?
I do have a recommendation this week. This week was the time that I finally got around to migrating away from those not going to be free anymore Google Apps accounts or Google Workspace or whatever they call it these days. And so two of those accounts, like I use them so little, I just moved them onto my web hosting platform's email. But the other one, I still, still need enough things that it's sort of like, well, it's not really worth paying Google. So I moved it over to Zoho Mail, and you can get the mail, the calendar, the my phone thinks I was trying to talk to it. The mail, because I mentioned the big G.
My brain has that feeling when I open my mouth.
Yes. Anyway, you get mail, calendar, contacts for a mere $12 a year.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That cheap?
Yeah, that cheap. I mean, I didn't need a ton of storage, so
How was the migration? Because I ended up cleaning up a bunch of stuff. I was a little offended because I realized that they gave us a good ride, but I have a bunch of stuff. So like some accounts had 7, 8, miscellaneous email catch-alls. I had to do it down to 1, and it was $3 a month. And I figured like that's the convenience level for me to just stick around with this versus moving it. Was it an all-day affair to move it?
well, I was migrating 3 different domains. That took quite a while, but it's still it was pretty straightforward. They have clear instructions. They have a tool that you can use if you set up an AI key that will automatically migrate it in. So it's not like you don't have to like download your mail to your mail client and then upload it to their server. It will pull it straight in from
it's a lot of stuff though, right? Like
from your workspace.
Accounts.
I mean, these were also things where I had very little in those Google Drive accounts. And so that stuff I just moved elsewhere. I wasn't looking to Zoho for storage. And they give you the address so you can, hook up your client to the contacts, to the mail, to the calendar. And it works quite nicely.
Well, I just don't know how you can live with yourself, Sally. Google needs that money from you desperately.
I'm sure they're terribly hard up.
These venture capitalists that invested in Google, they need every penny so they can live in Southern California in the luxury that they're used to. I don't know how you live with yourself.
Google got its PPP money, so that's all that matters. Because I'm kidding. But I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think they did. Others did.
No, they were desperate. That's why I had to cancel those free accounts and demand money from you, because they're so desperate for money, Sally. There we go.
Yes, well, they should be glad I'm paying them for the one remaining account.
Right. Well, panel, it's been a great show. Thank you, Eshier, for joining us. Even though I keep pronouncing your name wrong, but I get used to it. I do that to everybody.
I've liked everyone you said. Every way you've said it, it's been awesome. So don't worry about it.
I love this lady. I just love her. I love her already. It's the first time I've met her. If only all the rest of the panel had that positive attitude, tribe, this panel show would be a bit easier. But there we go. We'll see you next week with another great panel and a great list of stories, hopefully. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.